Hello, my name is Pat McArdle. I live in California and I've been involved in the promotion of solar cooking technology since 2005 when I spent a year in northern Afghanistan. Although I haven't traveled much since the pandemic, over the past 2 decades I've done volunteer work in Asia, North and South America, and Africa for Solar Cookers International, Solar Household Energy, and other nonprofit organizations. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the importance of teaching integrated cooking whenever you are introducing solar cookers for the first time in a village or refugee camp, or to anyone unfamiliar with solar cooking technology. Integrated cooking is what many of us call the combined use of three technologies: solar cookers, wood-burning stoves, and retained heat containers. Here's a short clip from a BBC program that will show you how retained heat cookers work. Note, they've been around for a long, long time. In this brief clip from the BBC series Wartime Farm, you'll see how a British farmer's wife deals with fuel rationing by making and cooking with her own hay basket.
There was a popular wartime solution that Ruth's keen to try.
I'm going to make a hay box. Now, the funny thing, a hay box, there's no heat source. It's sort of just insulation. But it does the job that you might think of, say, like a slow cooker. So, hay. And I'm making a really thick layer. Not just on the bottom of the box, but up the sides of the box. And eventually I'll make it in the lid as well. It's all about keeping the heat in. So the stew that I've got on, when it's really thoroughly boiling, and it does have to be thoroughly boiling, then I can transfer it from there straight into here. Snuggle it down in there. And then on a minute, seal it all up. And you've kept the heat in. The heat can't escape, so the heat stays there, carrying on cooking slowly and gently.
There are many websites like the Provident Prepper and even Pinterest that explain the use of retained heat cookers and show you how to make them. Long before the internet, books like the Fireless Cookbook, first printed in 1909 for our great-grandmother's generation and reprinted in 2006 for us, taught people how to make and use this amazingly simple, energy-saving device. The goal of integrated cooking is to reduce the need to burn wood or other fuels by using solar cookers when it's sunny and retain heat containers to finish the cooking using no fuel at all. Here's a brief explanation of the guidance we give to people who are new to solar cooking. 1. If the sun is shining and the sky is blue, always use your solar cooker to heat your water and cook your food. Once your food is fully cooked, eat it while it's hot. However, if you prefer to eat in the evening, put the steaming pot of food into a retained heat container where it will stay hot for several more hours and finish cooking. If you are cooking food with a solar cooker, but it gets cloudy in the middle of the day, you have two options. 1, if your solar cooked pot of food is still steaming hot, remove it quickly from the solar cooker and immediately put it into a retained heat container where it will finish cooking in several hours using no fuel at all. If your solar cooked food is not very hot, light a small fire, bring the pot of food to a boil for 15 to 20 minutes, then extinguish the fire and immediately put the pot of boiling food into a retained heat container so it can finish cooking. At night or on cloudy days, cook your food over an open fire or using a rocket stove or any stove you have, but only cook the food and burn the fuel until the pot has been boiling for 15 to 20 minutes. Extinguish the fuel so you can use it later. Place the covered pot of food into a retained heat cooking box or basket and let it finish cooking for the next 3 to 5 hours using no fuel at all. If you're cooking more than one pot, do the same thing you did with the first pot. It will take about 3 hours for the food to be fully cooked inside the retained heat boxes. Retained heat cookers, also known as hay boxes or fireless cookers, can be made with 3 local materials, including woven baskets, cardboard or wooden boxes, even ice chests. They must be stuffed top, bottom, and sides with 6 inches, 15 centimeters of insulation. You can use hay, dried grass, crumpled newspapers, old clothes, blankets, and many other easily accessible insulating materials. Frequently, solar cookers are presented as a standalone technology that will reduce the need to cook over a fire. In my opinion, this is a mistake. Giving a solar cooker to a woman whose ancestors have cooked over open fires for thousands of years and only showing her how to use the solar cooker when the sun is shining is not enough. While reducing fuel usage by using a solar cooker is very important, it's also important to acknowledge the value of the three-stone fires that millions of women have been cooking with for millennia. We also need to teach them how to use a retained heat cooker to save fuel by reducing their need to cook over an open fire. Remember, too, that solar cookers and retained heat baskets are new and unknown technologies for the people who are seeing them for the first time. Here's a story about a similar event that took place in my mother's kitchen almost 60 years ago when I was a teenager. It was her birthday, and my father thought he had found the perfect gift that would make cooking easier, faster, and less expensive for my mom. An added bonus was that the device would only get hot on the inside and wouldn't heat up our kitchen the way a gas stove always did. His gift to my mom was one of the first countertop microwave ovens that was available in stores almost 60 years ago. My mother's reaction was not what Dad had expected. She was terrified, although she tried not to show it. She refused to plug it in because she thought it might explode or start a fire, or that the radiation would kill all of us. She also believed that any food or liquid heated inside this strange metal box would poison the whole family. That microwave oven sat unused in our kitchen for more than a year until my mother finally started using it to heat water for coffee. She never used it for cooking. Her reaction was not unusual in the late 1960s, when most people were initially afraid to use these strange new devices that today we use all the time. I'm using my mom's fear of that microwave oven to highlight the fact that most of the women we introduce solar thermal and retained heat cooking to for the first time need a lot of explanation, a lot of training, and lots of trial and error, and plenty of supervised time to try cooking their traditional foods with these devices to make sure that it's safe to eat and that it tastes like the food they have always cooked for their families over a three-stone fire. I also believe that we should always promote solar cookers as part of the way to reduce fuel usage and not as a complete replacement for wood-burning stoves. Let me tell you about my first experience with integrated cooking, a technique I learned about in Mexico in 2006 from Wilfred Pimentel, a solar cooking advocate from California. It's not rocket science, and if I can do it, anybody can do it. On a cool but sunny October day in 2007, I was invited to give a solar cooking demonstration at the Pentagon, that's our Ministry of Defense, to a group of 5 soldiers and civilians who are not familiar with solar or retained heat cooking. When I set up my 4 solar panel cookers in the Pentagon's interior courtyard at 10 in the morning, I promised the men that at 5 p.m. I would be serving them a hot meal of chicken and beans, no matter what the weather was. That day I used 2 lightweight panel solar cookers to bake 2 pots of beans and 2 more panel cookers to bake 2 pots of chicken. The panel solar cookers I used were cookets, like the one these refugee ladies are using in this photo. I brought 4 retained heat containers, each one made from a cardboard box stuffed with blankets, pillows, and crumpled newspaper. I also brought 2 small rocket stoves and a bag of wood just in case. Here's a photo of one of the rocket stoves I used. It's small, but it's powerful. By noon, it started getting cloudy, and my 4 solar cookers, which had been simmering the pots of food since 10 a.m., were no longer producing enough heat to cook with. I quickly fired up my 2 rocket stoves with the sticks of wood I'd brought and heated each pot of chicken stew to a rolling boil for 20 minutes. I placed each simmering pot of beans into one of my well-insulated, homemade cardboard retained heat boxes and closed them up tight for the next 4.5 hours. I boiled the 2 pots of chicken for 15 minutes and did the same thing with them. By 5 p.m., the sun was low in the sky and it was getting cold. I invited the 5 men into the tent so they could watch me open each box. They were amazed to see that all 4 pots of food were fully cooked and still steaming after spending 4 hours in my retained heat boxes with no fuel at all. After watching me take a few bites, they ate everything I had cooked. Several years later, I hosted an integrated cooking demonstration on a partly cloudy day in Guyana using the local chicken stew recipe. I brought one of the pots of chicken and vegetables to a rolling boil for 20 minutes over a small rocket stove made of bricks. Here's a picture of that rocket stove. And if you'd like to learn how to make one of these rocket stoves with just 16 bricks, check out my website, Solar Wind Mama, on YouTube. I put the boiling pots of chicken stew into a cardboard box stuffed with pillows and blankets. 3 hours later, I opened the box in front of a group of Guyanese, college professors, and military personnel. They could see that the food was steaming hot, but they were all afraid to try it. I dished up a plate of the chicken stew, and they all silently watched me eat it. When I didn't die or get sick, they dished up their own plates and they ate everything in the pot. The moral of this story is that new technologies like retained heat cooking and solar cooking need multiple demonstrations before people will believe and understand that they actually work and that the food is safe to eat. We should always promote solar cooking technology as part of the solution and not simply as a replacement for wood-burning stoves. Unfortunately, many solar cooker manufacturers and promoters still view combustion stoves as competition. Some have told me they consider it too confusing if they try to introduce women to solar cookers and retained heat cookers at the same time. Believe me, it's not too confusing. In one refugee camp in Chad, I saw women weaving and lining beautiful baskets for use as retained heat cookers. Here you can see the baskets. Unfortunately, no one explained to them that they had to stuff 6 inches, 15 centimeters of insulation at the top, bottom, and sides of the baskets to fully insulate the pots of food and allow the basket to cook them. The result was that the women made a lot of beautiful baskets and lined them, but they never used their hand-woven baskets for cooking because they didn't put enough insulation in to keep fuel hot. Finally, it's important to understand that in many countries, the main meal, usually cooked at noon, frequently requires 2 pots of food, or 2 cooking pots. One for a stew with meat and vegetables, and one for starches like cassava, plantains, maize, or rice. The very large solar cooker that can hold 2 pots of food or 2 solar cookers should always be provided to each family so they can cook 2 pots at the same time. A very influential academic solar cooker study took place in Senegal more than a decade ago and sadly resulted in the rejection of solar cooking technology by the Senegalese government. Each family had been given only 1 solar cooker. Because of this, the women still had to build a fire to cook their second pot of food for the lunch meal. Since there was very little fuel reduction reported during the study, the project resulted in Senegal canceling its planned nationwide rollout of solar cookers. There are still hundreds of millions of people around the world who would benefit from having solar cookers and from making their own retained heat containers and cooking with the integrated cooking method for maximum savings. I hope you find this information useful, and I hope you will promote integrated cooking. Thank you very much.